Yes, welcome in to The Swing. Apparently, a much needed episode of The Swing. I got quite a few messages here the last few days wondering when the next one was going to come, and here we are. And certainly apologize, obviously. Would have loved to do it after the game, waiting on an interview. That interview you're going to hear in just a little bit. It is Max Klesmit, Badgers guard, going to join us for about 20 minutes to talk about where the Badgers are in their season and looking ahead to what's left and how he's feeling and how the team's feeling as they make this stretch run into March. But Jesse, there are a couple big games since the last time we had a chance to do this, going at Purdue and getting a win, coming home and blowing out Illinois, a banged up Illinois, sick Illinois. Stephen Crowell didn't care, but yes, it was a couple of impressive performances by Wisconsin.
Huge week for the Badgers. Now, they had come into that stretch with 3 straight wins, and now they're sitting there with 5 straight wins and a legitimate chance to potentially earn a share of the Big Ten regular season crown. We'll see, but they keep climbing at the right time. If you want to start with the Purdue game, one of the most impressive performances by a Wisconsin team on the road, and I don't know how long. Like, I don't want to be a prisoner of the moment, but they scored 94 points against a top 10 team on the road with 18 assists and 3 freaking turnovers. And they dropped 50 plus in the second half of what was a close game.
58.
Just absurd.
Yes. Insane. The 94 points, the most they've ever scored on the road against a top 10 team. It was, I thought for a second there they were going to get to 100. And then they come back the next day, a couple days later and go for 95 against Illinois. But yeah, the Purdue game, I mean, they fought through it in the first half. They trail by 1 at the end, at halftime. And then all of a sudden Purdue starts making shots. Like they scored in their first 6 possessions. But Wisconsin didn't care. They kept making shots. And the guy we need to talk about is John Tonje, because he was fantastic. And we judge performances now at Purdue on Johnny Davis, because he went for 37 in that game in December of 2021. He dropped 37. It was kind of his coming out party that season. And John Tonje was right there with him with what he did on Saturday in West Lafayette. The step backs, guys in his face, they're not easy shots. Like, this would be one thing if he was just shooting open shots. There was not a ton of open shots. Guys were in his face, and he just didn't care. He has been on an absolute tear since that USC game where he didn't score. He's averaging 25 a game, scored at least 22 in 7 of the last 8. And these last 2 games goes back-to-back 30-point games. The first time that's happened since Michael Finley. He's just the 4th player ever to do it in Wisconsin history. He has been amazing. He's put himself in contention for Big Ten Player of the Year. And probably a lot of people, I mean, we've seen the national media, and that could be fickle and it could be very, very short-lived. But right now, if the season ended today, you'd have to have him among your first-team All-Americans if we're being fair to him.
Yeah. The transfer portal edition of the offseason. I don't care wherever else you are, whatever school, to have a guy come in and impact the game the way that he has and be a potential first-team All-American does not happen very often. And he's so hard to guard. Like the 3-pointer where he went behind the back, step back, got fouled. I'm not sure what you're supposed to do with that. And it's the fact that he can score at all 3 levels. So if you want to overplay him and say, all right, he's just a 3-point shooter because he's on fire right now, he's going to take you off the dribble, post you up, and score inside, get to the line, and make 90+% from the free throw line. I just don't know what you do with him, because if you want to double him, well, that's why this Wisconsin team is special, because every guy on the floor, certainly all the starters, are capable of scoring in double figures. So it's been a joy to watch. It's a much different way to play than Johnny Davis, but it has led to the same result of potential All-American trending toward a 3-2 seed, potentially in Milwaukee. And that has been a huge separator without question for the Badgers.
So I was going to throw this out as an overreaction or no, but then we did the interview, so I don't know if we'll get to it, but I'll throw this one out to you right now before we get to the interview. Overreaction or no, John Tonje is the best pure scorer in the Bo Ryan, Greg Gard era.
Oh my goodness.
Well, I'll throw some other names out there, right? Devin Harris, Kirk Penny, Alondo Tucker, Jordan Taylor. I guess I'm more thinking of like wings and guards because it's different. So you have obviously Sam Decker and obviously Johnny Davis. And I don't know who else we're throwing in that mix.
I mean, Frank Kaminsky was National Player of the Year, but
right. But I'm saying,
scorer.
yeah,
I feel like it's hard for me not to say Tucker because he scored more points than anybody, but different types of players.
The thing that makes like just in terms of a pure score, and I maybe have to define what I mean by pure score. You said it. He can score at any level of the defense, right? Like he's shooting 40+% from three. He's shooting nearly 50% from two, and he's shooting over 90% from the free throw line. So what do you do with him? Right? You know what I mean? Like with Tucker, you could say, all right, I'm going to let him shoot threes, or I'm going to put him on the free throw line because that's not his game. With John Tonje, he's going to score wherever you put him. Now, overall game, he's not the rebounder that Johnny Davis was. He's not necessarily. He's a much better defender than he was at the beginning of the season. I'll give him that for sure. But maybe not at the level of some of the like a Devin Harris before he had to take over his junior year when he was the option when Tucker got hurt and his defense took a little bit of a slide. But in terms of just pure score, he's up there. He's got to be at the top or top two.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all because, again, the variety of ways he can score. And it's like when he puts his head down and decides he wants to get to the basket, he's not necessarily breaking you off with so much quickness that he's leaving people in the dust. Like he is doing it because of his physicality with people in his face. And he has a level of confidence and calmness about him because of his experience that makes it so he doesn't panic when he gets in those situations. So, yeah, I mean, it's for us to debate those types of things. I don't know whether he's number one, but he's certainly in the conversation. And it's been fun to watch. And I also just on the Purdue game, I think it's funny that because Wisconsin is in a nationally televised slot against a top 10 team and it's February and all the other sports are done, that now all the national pundits are talking about how incredible Wisconsin is and how Greg Gard should be National Coach of the Year in the conversation. And those were all true before, but it's just funny to me when people start paying attention.
Well, I think they were true before, but I think we both agreed that they needed to prove that they could beat the best teams in the conference, right? Because they had been to that point 0-4 against teams above 500 in Big Ten play. They went there and proved it. And then they came home and did what they did to an Illinois team that is not the Illinois team that they faced back in December. But Wisconsin's also not the team that they were back in December. And you'll hear from Max here a little bit about that, how they've developed and come along, because in this transfer portal era where you're trying to work guys in, it's not always easy. It's not always going to happen right away. And right now, Wisconsin is still, I mean, there's still room to grow, right? There's still things that can get better, certainly for them. Defensively, they are not going to be the best defensive team that's ever come through Wisconsin. However, they are, I believe, in the 40s, high 40s, maybe I think it's low 40s, I should say, in terms of defensive efficiency right now. I know when we talked to Greg last week, he mentioned, trying to get into the mid 20s, and maybe that won't happen. But if you're going to score the way that they're scoring, I think low 40s might work.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it is. One more thing on Tonje. The 50-40-90 club. He has a chance to be the first Badger to ever do it. Now, I have to say that there have not been too many Badgers that have shot better than 90% from the free throw line for an entire season. There's two of them, Brian Good and Bronson Koenig, and neither of them shot better than 50% from the field in those years. And Bronson was not over 40% from three either that season. And he also, I think he took 63 free throws, and you have to, I think 50 is the cutoff. So it's not like John Tonje's made like 126 at this point. So, or 160 or something like that to this point. So it's a little bit different, but it's not just Wisconsin. It doesn't happen very much in the NCAA. I went and looked for these numbers, and I could only find through 2021, but 11 guys from 1993 until 2021 had done it. And only one player in the Big Ten had ever done it. And that was Cassius Winston back in 2018. We know how good he was. And he was a first team All-American and was just fantastic that year. That dude shot 50-something% from three that year on like pretty high volume. It was crazy. But John Tonje is in some rare air. And I don't think he's going to get to the 50. He's at 48.5% right now from the field, but it would be a hell of an accomplishment for sure.
It's been remarkable. And without question, to me, he's a first team All-American.
Yeah. Right now, yeah. Again, there's time to go, right? There's still, if they go, I mean, he's not going to be in the conversation for National Player of the Year, but if they go and find a way to get a share of this title, and right now they are 2 games back of Michigan and a game back of Michigan State. They get to go to Michigan State here in over the last 5 games. I think it's Oregon, Washington, and then to Michigan State, right? And then they go to Minnesota and then get Penn State at home to finish things out. If they run the table and Michigan somehow loses a couple of games and they win a share of the Big Ten, John Tonje definitely has to be Player of the Year. Even if they don't do that, I think the way that Purdue has fallen off and Braden Smith has kind of fallen off in terms of, he's still a great player. He had a hell of a game against Wisconsin in terms of assists, not shooting the ball very well, but he's one of the better point guards in the country, if not the best point guard in the country. But I think it's going to be tough not to give it to John Tonje.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, hell, if they run the table, Greg is the national coach of the year. I get there's other guys in the conversation, Bruce Pearl certainly, but like for a team picked in the preseason to finish tied for 12th to be what would be, I think, 26-5 going in the Big Ten tournament. Yeah, it'd be without a doubt. So
there's no chance of higher than 2 seed though, right?
Well, what if they then win the Big Ten tournament and you're on a heater of that magnitude? That's the problem, though. Big Ten tournament ends like 6 seconds before they have the seeding. They do have some leeway there to make some changes. I don't know if they get higher than a 2, but they're going to be in Milwaukee and have about as good of a position as you could have.
Yes, and certainly asked Max about that, and we asked Greg about it last week. It really depends on the team, and this team with not a ton of Wisconsin players on it, it's probably a good. I mean, they have important Wisconsin players on it, right? Max and Kamari and Carter Gilmore, 3 important in terms of guys that are in the rotation and that type of thing. But yeah, I'd love for him to be in Wisconsin. I'd love for him to be at Milwaukee just because it makes it easier on us as well. And you're going to be there no matter what. So that'll be good for you. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if Wisconsin's going to be there or not. You'll be there.
Yeah, I'm covering the first 2 rounds of the tournament for the Athletic in Milwaukee, no matter who's there. So certainly would be more fun if Wisconsin's there.
Where'd you go last year? You went to Indy, right?
Yes, Indianapolis. So I ended up being the de facto Marquette person.
As they made their run to
Sweet 16.
The Sweet 16, right? Yeah.
They got out of Indy.
Yeah. All right. Let's jump into our interview with Wisconsin guard Max Klesmit. Hit on a number of things. And we do welcome in a special guest. It is Wisconsin guard Max Klesmit. Max, appreciate you taking the time. You guys are in a bit of a heater, you would say. Won 5 straight. Your projected seed in the NCAA tournament continues to ride. I want to talk about a guy that's been really, really good during the stretch and pretty good throughout the entire year. You've had a front row seat to what John Tonje has done and what he's done, especially since that USC game. Have you ever been around? I know you're a pretty good scorer, but have you ever been around a guy that's been this kind of a heater for this long?
No, I mean, not really. I don't think I could say I've been around someone like this. I think the way he kind of goes about himself and the way he carries himself is what's most impressive to me. You'd think after however many points he had against Arizona, like you might let that get to your head early in the year. But then you just continue to dominate the game and dominate your matchup and whoever you're kind of going against. But it's really just how he's handled himself throughout all the attention he's kind of got. Even the different looks that defenses are throwing at him, whether they're trying to force him one way, make him a little more uncomfortable going to a certain hand. But I think everything that, whether it's outside noise, schematic things, whatever's been thrown at him, he's, taken the challenge head on and he's accepted everything that's, come with it. And I think as teammates and, as friends, like we're super proud of seeing him being super humble and super mature about his success right now.
Max, this team was picked in the preseason to finish tied for 12th in the Big Ten, proving once again that nobody knows what the hell they're talking about when it comes to picking teams. But for you, when did you know this team was better than what people thought?
I think kind of like when we first got here and we first started playing with each other right away. It was kind of it wasn't as smooth sailing as it looks now. We had a lot of new pieces and a lot of new stuff to kind of figure out. I said before with John Blackwell stepping into a bigger role, Nolan coming into the starting lineup, Jack Janicki playing a huge role, Kamari seeing a little bit more production in his game. We just hadn't played a lot with one another. We hadn't had the rotation that we kind of been used to have in the last 2 years, and I think it just kind of took time for it to organically kind of work out and get a feel for how each other, how it was going to work and how we were going to have to play and how we were going to be successful. But I think that's something every team kind of faces as a challenge in their first couple weeks starting up the season. Especially nowadays with this transfer portal and guys moving around like crazy. But I think the way we work together and the way we play, you're bound to have guys kind of have games like that where John Blackwell or John Tonje can go for 30 points, and then you see guys like Steve too, which opens his game and everything he can do for us as well. So it's a lot of fun to play in.
So this offense is the most efficient offense at Wisconsin since the 2015, according to Ken Pom and T Rank and all those good things. You were here, a 3 years ago when it wasn't as efficient as it is now. What's it been like to see the process of going from that team to what it is right now and the way that things are rolling? You're putting up, I think I saw a stat where you guys have scored 90 in Big Ten games, like 3 times in the last 10, had been 3 times in 400 before that. So it's just so much different.
Yeah. I think the cliche answer would be to say we came a long way since 2 years ago, but I mean, I really just think it's the freedom. I want to, speak about Coach Gard and how much freedom and ability he's given us players to kind of go out there and play free of mind and have the utmost confidence in our game. Going into every matchup, we feel like, we've prepared ourselves and we're ready for, whoever's across from us. But it's really been crazy, to be honest. Just looking back and watching games from how you played 2 years ago and the style and the pace of it, and then looking at it now, it wouldn't even be something you could compare and talk about. But as a player, it's a dream. Every player kind of dreams of playing in a fast tempo. I don't want to say run and gun. I don't know if we're quite there yet, but hopefully one day these young fellas can call it the system can be called the run and gun. But it's fun. It's enjoyable. And I think that's why, we've had some success here as of late. It's just because everybody's enjoying themselves. Everybody's enjoying each other. It's fun going out there and watching guys score 30 points and be a part of that type of stuff. So I don't think the two, are comparable, but man, am I fun. I'm playing in this system now. So.
Max, you've shown you can get hot in any game, 20 plus points and a half against Marquette. You can go down the list. For you this season, how have you been able to impact the game in other ways if maybe your shot isn't falling? Because for some players that can cause problems everywhere else, but it doesn't seem like it has for you.
Yeah. When your jump shots aren't falling, it can be frustrating, but you have to be able to realize that's one aspect of the game. There's hundreds and thousands of different aspects you can impact the game on. So I just try to, keep my head level-headed, never get too high, never get too low, and, do whatever I can do to help our team win. I know that sounds pretty bland, but if I got to go out and I got to have 8 assists and I got to be a playmaker for these guys, if I got to go, lock up the counter Seasons or shooters of the world and run around and chase those guys, whatever, the team is willing of me to do, I'm going to do it. And that's kind of been my mindset, I think, throughout my whole career, is just being the competitive guy that's going to do whatever it takes to kind of win. And, if your jump shot's not falling, you got to find other ways to impact the game. And I think my teammates, especially the coaches, have done a really good job on staying on me and, letting me know that my presence out there and, the instincts that I bring to this team, go further than a ball going in from the 3-point line or not. So just continue to keep my head down. Shots will fall. I do believe that. So just doing the other things that impact winning.
Has this been a more difficult year for you physically, just because of the way that you started out with the injury? And then I think I saw you were on the bench the other day doing what was it? What were you using on the bench the other
Oh,
day?
the massage gun.
Yeah, like has
Yeah.
this just been a really difficult year for you physically, and just trying to get all the way? No one's 100%, but it feels
Right.
like you're having to overcome a little bit more than you would in a normal year.
Yeah, for sure. Like you said, no team or no person is always 100% feeling, or in terms of injuries or whatever you're dealing with. But it has been frustrating. It's been really frustrating trying to get my body healthy and kind of stay that way, or at least as healthy as it can be. I'm trying to do everything I possibly can to put myself in a position to be ready to go on game day and, ready to go every day in terms of practice and weights or whatever we got going on. But just trying to, like I said, trying to stay level headed. You can only control what you can control. I can't control rolling my ankle on a guy's foot or, getting Charlie horse 3 times, something like that. It's all kind of part of the game. And I think that's kind of, life's way of showing you there's adversity in things. And this is how you got to grow. And this is how you got to find a way but to fight through the challenges and the hard times. So, as much as I'm frustrated with kind of how, physically I'm feeling right now, I know that, there's light at the end of the tunnel. And if you just push through these challenges, you can overcome things.
You were part of teams the last 2 years that were hot in early January and then for various reasons weren't there in March. It certainly feels like this team is much different, but in your mind, why is this team better positioned to have some postseason success beyond simply the dropping 90 points the last couple of weeks, which is pretty important, obviously.
Yeah, right. Scoring's important, but I really think the last, I want to say 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, we're trying to hone in and buy into defensive things so much. Whether that's the scouting report, how we do things on an everyday basis, and just having that bite, that aggression to us that Coach Guard kind of always talks about. I know when we defend with that, all guys got that. We're pretty tough to score on, but that's an everyday mentality. Like, you don't just that flip doesn't switch on game day or the day before. You got to bring that every day, and you got to have that bite, that same chip on your shoulder at practice if you want to have it in a game too. So I think kind of looking to make a run deep in this thing, and just being successful in the postseason, it's going to start and end defensively. You look around the country, at least the top teams, a lot of them are top 10, top 15 in KenPom efficiency. So it's really the defensive side of things that are going to be able to, help your team win in the postseason and make your team go deep in March.
A few weeks ago, it didn't look like this would be a question that we would ask you guys, but you guys are not too far back in this Big Ten race. You're in third right now. You've got obviously Michigan is a couple games up, but they've got to play Michigan State twice. Michigan State's a game up on them. You guys get Michigan State here in a bit. So it feels like it's not out of the realm of possibility that you can catch them and perhaps get a share of this thing. Are you guys aware of that? Are you guys cognizant of what is happening elsewhere in the conference, or is it just strictly you guys?
I want to say a little bit of both. We're not schedule peeking or schedule watching in terms of what other teams are doing and who's winning and who's losing. Obviously, if this thing's going to shake out how we want it to, we're going to need a couple of the top teams to give us a game or two. But trying to approach it every day with the one game at a time mentality. We can only control what we can do. Can't control what happens in a Michigan State game twice. We can only control what happens when we go into the Breslin Center and whatnot. So just, trying to take it one game at a time, really focus on yourself, focus on what you as an individual can do to get better and help your team improve. And hopefully that helps us lead in the right direction come March.
You mentioned both John Tonje and John Blackwell, but Blackwell's been put in a position that is not easy to be the point guard, especially after Chucky is a 3-year starter. What has stood out about what he's been able to do to help everybody else this season?
I think it's kind of just showed, his ability to win at a high level. I think, back when he played in high school and his AAU ball, he was a very winning guy back when he was playing in his younger career. But I think it just shows his ability to want to win at a high level and his versatility. I think, he may be a little bit more comfortable as an off guard, but I think he looks just as comfortable with, being the primary ball handler for our offense. But I think the other thing too is that our offense doesn't really require a one guard, a two guard. It's all interchangeable. So, you could see me, or if, me, Kamari, and John Blackwell are in at the same time. Any of the three can bring it up. But I think it's just really showed his, way to adapt to the game, the flow of it, and kind of, if he needs to be a true point guard for us, or if he can kind of expand on that role and play a off-ball type guard and do whatever's kind of asked for him. But I think it just shows, how versatile of a guy John Blackwell really is for us, and, pretty much goes and guards the best ball handler the other team then has to every night. So I think it just shows how competitive as a young man he is, and how much game he really has.
I got just a couple more. This one actually was given to me, or asked of me on Twitter or X, or whatever you want to call it, from Nuclear Badger. He says the Badgers struggled earlier this year against pressure defenses. Do you think they've turned a corner, or just haven't played one since the game at Maryland? I figure you might be the best person to ask about that.
Yeah, I mean, I want to say it's because, like I said before, earlier in the season, we just hadn't played a lot with one another. We hadn't gotten a game setting and gotten a Maryland type of environment or a Marquette type of environment, and, played a team that was going to pressure you and be successful with it. Like, you're going to have to face adversity, and you're going to have to go through probably a loss or two to be able to really figure out who you are and how this is going to work, and who you are as a person kind of on the floor when things like that happens, when someone pressures you or someone gets in your stuff, and how you're going to react. But I don't want to say we're any different, really. I just want to say we're more comfortable, and we're more comfortable with how each other's games really work and how they work together. I don't think anybody's uncomfortable with pressure getting thrown at them. Sometimes we invite that because that can be a little bit easier to penetrate gaps and get at the front of the rim and make plays for one another. But I really just think it was our ability to play with each other at the start of the year and get comfortable learning and figuring out how that was going to work. But, I could say I'd want to go play every team we lost to, and hopefully we'd win that game. But you can't go back and play them. You can only learn from what happens. So.
You got a poster back there of Jordan and Kobe, I noticed.
Yeah, LeBron's in it too.
Oh, okay. All right. I didn't see LeBron. I know Jordan played before your time, which makes me realize how old I am.
Right.
Where do you stand on those three? What's your order?
Oh
boy.
Boy. Yeah. I used to be MJ. I really did. And I don't know how you can watch LeBron and not think that, he's the greatest. I mean, he's the all-time leading scorer. He's in every other category. I like all of them. You can like all of them. You can be a fan of everybody. It's not like you pick one guy and you hate the other two. I hate that stigma that gets put out there, is you have to like one person or something.
Jesse, you want to do a quick vote here? Who's got MJ?
I mean, I'm taking MJ.
All right, so 2-1 here. Here we go. There we go.
Old.
I'm a fan, though. Y'all are acting like I'm not a fan anymore.
No,
I didn't say you weren't.
We're just very old, and we remember.
Okay.
Yeah, we're very old, and we remember actually him playing. So, but no, my last question for you. Obviously, what you guys have done these last 2 weeks is put you in position to potentially be a pretty high seed in the NCAA tournament and potentially be able to play in Milwaukee for those first 2 rounds. They did that 3 years ago. Obviously, injuries played a role there, and the environment was great. 10 years or 11 years ago, I guess now, when they played Oregon, the loudest arena I've ever been in, and I think that kind of helped them win that game. Greg Gard has said that. Are you hopeful to get there, or does it matter?
I mean, that's the goal. I mean, to make a run as deep as you can, obviously. But, you talk with guys like Carter Gilmore and Steve, who were there in Milwaukee, who played Iowa State, and was at Colgate in the first round, I think.
Yeah.
And they speak about how loud, it was, and how fun of an environment it was. So that's definitely something that, as an in-state guy, you kind of want to hope you play closer to your hometown for the NCAA tournament. I would say, we're hopeful for that, but we also know it's something that we got to work for, and it's not something that just kind of gets dropped out of the sky. Everything especially in college basketball, you have to work for. In the Big Ten, there's never a night off, so we know we're going to get everybody's best swing now, especially kind of, planting ourselves where we are in terms of the season. But I think it would be awesome to get to be able to play in Milwaukee, get to be able to experience that environment. I know we get a taste of it against Marquette, but I think it'd be a whole different beast for the NCAA tournament.
Definitely would be. Hey, Max, thank you so much for your time, and good luck here the rest of the season. We'll catch up down the road.
Yes, sir. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
All right, there he was, Wisconsin guard Max Klesmit. Really thankful for him to come on and join us for a little bit. He has had it's been not the season I'm sure he wanted in terms of just him, physically and not being able to get to the place where he wants to be. But I think, and I actually said this before the Purdue game on one of our shows, that I think he can be an X factor because of what he has been in the past, what we saw from him last year in the Big Ten tournament and in, frankly, the NCAA tournament. He was one of the few guys that actually showed up to play against James Madison and was able to score and hit some shots. And certainly against Illinois, kept them in that. I shouldn't say kept him in that game, but hit some big shots in the Big Ten championship game too. So I still think he's an X factor. If he gets back up to shooting 35, he's at 28, I think, % from three this year. If he gets back up to that 35, 36, which is what he's been throughout his entire career, that's just another huge weapon for Wisconsin. And they have a lot of them right now.
He deserves a lot of credit for continuing to play through what he's battling through and not hanging his head, even if 3-point shots are going, when that has generally been your forte, because he's still able to average in double figures or score in double figures most games and doesn't let it affect him defensively, which he talked about, the ability to guard the best scorers in the league when you're out there on the wing. And of course, if he gets hot, which we've seen, look out, because I don't know where you go to try and stop people, especially in that starting lineup.
Well, it's the thing about it is, unlike last year, and I went back and I don't know why I was doing this, but I went back and watched the before Wisconsin played Purdue on Saturday. I went back and watched the Big Ten tournament game between those two teams, and looking at Wisconsin's offense and really looking at Purdue's defense when Tyler Wall was on the floor, and really even when Carter Gilmore was on the floor, they just play it so much differently. You can't play Wisconsin's offense like you played that Wisconsin offense last year. You can't do it. Zach Edey sitting in the middle, not worried about anybody named Tyler Walsh making a shot. And again, as I said, Carter Gilmore was in that same spot last year. No one really was afraid of him, nor should they have been. That's different this year. And it feels like, and we know this, Wisconsin, for all 40 minutes, has somebody at the four that can hit a three-pointer and is going to force you to cover them and spread it out. And that, to me, is obviously what makes this offense so much better than last year's.
That's what Greg mentioned when we talked to him last week, when I asked him one of the biggest differences. And it's exactly that. You have fours who can shoot threes. And when you do that, you pull everyone out to the perimeter. You have much better spacing. We're seeing it in the numbers, obviously. They're making 10+ threes a game, which is going to be a school record. They're taking almost 27 a game, which is going to be a school record. And it comes from everywhere. So it's been real special to watch.
Yeah. Conference tournament, he didn't really have to shoot it much against Maryland because everyone hit it. But Max Klesmit, 3 from 8 for 3 against Northwestern, 2 for 5 against Purdue, 4 for 6 against Illinois, and 5 for 9 against James Madison in the tournament. That's the type of shooter from outside that he can be, and he's got that in his game. And I feel like if Wisconsin's going to make a deep run, he's going to have to have one of those games. Now, he didn't make a ton of shots against Purdue, but was fantastic. He had 17 points and 6 huge assists. I thought some of the passes that they made late in the shot clock against Purdue are some of the best late shot clock moments that I've seen from a Wisconsin team in quite some time. And, I think Greg was asked about it. Like, how do you explain that? And he goes, you don't. That's just guys making plays. That's not, you can work on that, but it takes time. It takes guys being together for an extended period of time and getting to know each other to be able to do that stuff. But Max made those plays. John Blackwell made those plays. Stephen Crowell made those plays. Like, some of the passes were just remarkable. Even Tonje, the pass that he had to Blackwell for a great finish at the rim. They're playing really well. They're playing really well. All right. Before we move on, we do have some time here, so I'm going to throw a couple of these overreaction or no's at you, if you're ready.
Yeah, let's do it.
Nolan Winter is the one future NBA player on this roster. Is that an overreaction or no?
I think it's an overreaction. I think
There's
largely because I think there will be somebody else.
Okay.
I don't know what John Tonje's future is. It's hard. Like, if you're a first team All-American and you can score 30 plus on multiple nights, I think you're going to have a chance because he's so physical. I don't know whether defensively or what position wise he fits. I think he's giving himself a chance. And I also wonder about John Blackwell, because it's easy to forget the dude is just a sophomore. And if he's willing to stick it out, and we talked about this because I wrote the story on John and talked to his dad, Glenn, the philosophy that they have, it's very smart and it's very grounded. Is his dad said, I told him this about his career. We are not going to microwave your career. We're going to put you in the slow cooker and let you develop. So let's assume that happens for even another year. I mean, what's he going to look like next year? I don't want to get ahead of ourselves because we've got the most fun part of this season coming. But I just think that there's the possibility for somebody else.
Okay. Wisconsin's penchant for first half turnovers is going to cost it down the stretch. Overreaction or no?
I don't think,
because they've. I mean, it hasn't been this way all season. It's been this way for the last few weeks, where they turned the ball over a bunch in the first half. Didn't do it against Purdue, but did do it against Illinois, and certainly it has in other games. And then they turn it around in the second half and have like one or two or none.
Yeah.
In the case of Purdue.
So I don't want to dismiss this. I don't want to say it's an overreaction entirely. We've talked about this before. The difference between this team is they can play faster. They can overcome mistakes because if they feel like it and they're hot, they'll just drop 95 on you. So if you turn the ball over a few times, not as big of a deal. On the other hand, man, I know this was a different team a year ago. I can't get the thought of just in general the James Madison game out of my head, because they were at that point, that team was scoring pretty well. They had a nice run in the Big Ten tournament. And if you just have a stretch of bad play, I realize it was more than a stretch against James Madison. Like, it's so tough against a good team with a different style that you may not have seen before, even if you scout it. So that would be my concern, is if you're a high volume turnover team for even a small stretch and you don't have the type of shooting performance that you're used to, what do you do then?
Right. And again, that I think is where the question that we asked to Max from Nuclear Badger was struggle against pressure defenses. And I think whenever you hear the word pressure defense, at least at this point, because it's the most recent example of your season being derailed by it, is James Madison, and the way that they got up into Wisconsin and was physical with them and just made them uncomfortable. Is that something that could do something similar to this year's team? And what's the answer to that? I guess is we'll have to see. They did not. Would you agree they did not handle it great earlier this year?
Yeah. And to answer that, it's certainly possible that they will struggle with that. I also, and again, if going back to the thing I was asking Max, like, if Wisconsin's picked 12th in the preseason, it obviously once again proves we don't know what the hell we're talking about. So I'm pontificating out of my butt here, but I feel like this is the team that gets out of that first weekend. You usually look at that first weekend and there's a game. Maybe it's the first game against James Madison. Maybe it's the second game against Iowa State when they were in Milwaukee a few years ago, and you don't play your best. I just feel like there's something, well, we've seen it with the scoring, but just different about this team that's going to allow them to get over that hump. And they're just better than what we've seen here.
And I also think you go back to that James Madison game, and I know you were in Indy. I was in Brooklyn, and the crowd, right, but the crowd was all in on James Madison, like all in. There was Wisconsin people there, but it was, as soon as James Madison got out, it was James Madison crowd. You know, it was all Duke fans, and I'm trying to think of who the other team was, but it was not an environment for Wisconsin. It was an environment that really juiced up James Madison. And if Wisconsin's able to finish this strong this year, they are going to be playing in that environment for themselves. They're going to have that backing. They're going to have the crowd that's going to get behind them when things are going well and to pick them up when things aren't going well and to get them turned around a little bit. That doesn't guarantee anything, but it makes you in such a better spot than it does if you're sitting out in Brooklyn and you've got everyone jumping on the James Madison bandwagon in that arena. So I think that's at least noteworthy. Noteworthy if they end up in Milwaukee.
There is a level of pressure, no doubt, that comes with playing in Milwaukee, as we've seen, because you feel that level of tenseness to live up to what people believe. On the other hand, like you're talking about, Zach, and we've seen it certainly at the Bradley Center, you have a crowd that is willing you to victory. And it is just such a different atmosphere from when the upset bandwagon starts to spring and you feel like it's spiraling out of control. So,
Right.
Maybe we'll end up talking about Milwaukee in each subsequent episode as it becomes more realistic and people may not want to hear it, but it does feel like it can be so important for a team and its confidence.
Which is funny because when I looked at the sites earlier this year, or not even earlier this year, earlier this season, I was like, all right, well, don't have to worry about Milwaukee. Where else could Wisconsin end up?
Yep.
And here we are less than a month away. And I mean, essentially about 4 weeks away. And it's very much in play if they finish out the season the way that they've played these last few weeks. One more here for you before we touch on Oregon real quickly. Michigan is the best team in the Big Ten. Is that an overreaction or no?
I guess I'm going to say it's no, not an overreaction.
I think they're the luckiest team.
14-2.
I think they're the luckiest team in the Big Ten.
All right. Well, it's better to be lucky than good. Look, the fact Wisconsin is even in this discussion is incredible. And
Michigan's 12-2.
12-2. If Wisconsin goes and beats Michigan State, that's going to change a lot, I think, obviously. So.
Right. I mean, Michigan and Michigan State play twice here in these final 3 weeks of the regular season. This Friday and then down the road. Wisconsin obviously goes to the Breslin Center. They will not be the number one seed. I guess maybe if there's a three-way tie, Wisconsin might be the number one seed in the conference tournament. They obviously won't be the number one seed if they tie Michigan because Michigan came in here and won by 3 earlier this season. But I think Michigan has been like earlier in the season, they couldn't win close games, and now they're winning every close game. And I don't think Michigan had anything to do with an what was a kid from Ohio State, their point guard, who airballed a layup that could have tied the game and sent it to overtime on that was probably Sunday. Like I don't know that, like, that's luck. That's pure luck that's happening.
They've won 6 in a row. I mean, like, it's a very short list, obviously. So I suppose is your argument right now that it would be Wisconsin as the best team?
I think Wisconsin's playing the best. I don't know that at a neutral site 3 weeks from now they're the best, but I think they're playing the best right now.
Okay.
The net rankings would, and again, it doesn't mean anything. I think it's just all opinion at this point, right? There's the only fact in this entire argument would be Michigan beat Wisconsin in December, which to me holds no value right now because none of these teams, and Michigan is included in this, none of the teams are what they were back in December. I think Michigan's a better team now because, like Wisconsin, had so many transfer guys, and Dusty May trying to install a new vision and bring what he had at FAU up here and all that stuff that comes along with it. I think that they've improved too, but I think Wisconsin, the way they're playing offensively and have seen strides on defense, I think you can make the argument that they're playing the best of anybody. Fair
argument. I know you already know this, but the game does matter if it's going to come down to the Big Ten standings and who gets what seeding, obviously. But yeah, I mean, like it's 3 teams and that's it because Purdue has faltered here of late.
Right, but I'm not saying that game doesn't matter in the standings. It absolutely matters in the standings. As I pretty sure I said, they're not going to be the number one seed if they tie. You heard that. I like you, Jesse. Everybody out there, I like Jesse. I'm not saying, yeah. We're good. We're friends.
There's 3 teams in the conversation right now, obviously.
Yes, but just look at some of the Michigan scores of late, right? In the month of February, won at Rutgers by 3, beat Oregon by 4 at home, beat Indiana by 3, beat Purdue by 2, beat Ohio State by 3. Like there is absolutely something to a team winning close games. Like we saw that with Wisconsin, with Johnny Davis and that group, and how many single digit games that they won that year. It was insane how good it was. And then the following year, it all came back, and they were horrible. Not horrible is a little bit of a strong word. But they were not nearly as good in one score games as they had been the previous year. I think that there is some luck in that for sure. Whereas these last 2 games, the way Wisconsin has played, I think they've been just clearly the better team, and haven't needed, I guess, to finish late. But even if they get put in that position, they have the best free throw shooting team in the country. So you want to get into a free throw battle late in the game, I think Wisconsin will be okay with that too. All right, so Wisconsin will face Oregon coming up here on Saturday as Oregon and Washington make their visit to the Midwest. I believe they're probably, yeah. It is Oregon's first visit to Wisconsin, I think, as not part of the NCAA tournament since 1990 or 1988. They did like a home and home in the late 80s, early 90s, but they haven't met in the regular season since then. But they played a ton in the tournaments, I should say. 2014, 2015, 2019 NCAAs, and 2023 the NIT out there in Eugene. Badgers 3-1 in those games. The one that they lost was in 2019 in San Jose, which was a disaster of a day. Speaking of teams that didn't finish the season well, that would be certainly one of them. But when you look at this game, Wisconsin obviously favored in it. You feel good about it?
I'd say you have to, based on the way the Badgers have played. And if you want to get where you need to go, protecting your home court matters a lot, obviously. Oregon was a ranked team not too long ago. So there's a lot of talent there. Fortunately for them, the game's inside. I know Mick Cronin wants to complain about having to go wherever, and that's a different team from the West Coast. But I don't know how you can't feel good about what Wisconsin is doing right now. So I have no reason to believe that it's going to stop all of a sudden.
Yeah, so Oregon has won 3 straight. They took care of Northwestern, got Rutgers at home and beat them up, and then went to Iowa and won last night by 2. Their last 2 losses before that came to Michigan State on the road and then Michigan on the road. So they have played better basketball of late, I would say, since the start-ish of February. And I think this is an opportunity for them because they're probably going to make the NCAA tournament. Probably. I don't think they're a lock at this point yet, though. At least based on some of the, I think should be in, I think is the category that they are, at least, I believe at your site at The Athletic. I believe that was, should be in. But Wisconsin needs to keep this going. And you think they will?
Yeah, but I'm just going to give the mea culpa. I said they wouldn't beat Purdue. So what the hell do I know?
I said they wouldn't beat Purdue either. I have no problem holding my hand up for that one. But
I didn't think Braden Smith would go 2 for 10 from the field. But if we wanted to talk about defense, I mean, yeah, he missed some shots, but man, they did a good job on him. And he had 12 assists, but he had like 8 assists in the first half. So they did a really good job on him.
They also couldn't hit a shot either, yes. Right? I mean,
that helps.
So it does. So we'll see. All right, Wisconsin and Oregon coming up on Saturday. Then they get Washington on Tuesday. We'll be back next week to break it all down and look ahead to a huge road game at Michigan State. Right? Yes. All right. Jesse, thank you very much.
Thanks, Zach.
All right, there he is. Jesse Temple from The Athletic. You've been listening to The Swing.